94% of normal, with very limited snow now remaining through the southern interior and the southwest. And areas that show up in blue here really reflecting where we see still see snowpack in the higher elevations and mountain terrain in the north and in through the eastern parts of the province. Now, in terms of streamflow conditions, on the far left here, we can see a snapshot from real-time streamflow gauges across the province. And the reds highlighting conditions that are currently at below normal for this time of year, with many in that dark red and bright red colors reflecting quite extreme conditions near record in many locations, particularly, again, through those challenging areas in the south and southwest. We can see the same information on the right here, but spanned over the last couple of months, and just really looking at the distribution or that spread across wetter or higher stream flow in the blue and below normal stream flow in the oranges and reds, and really seeing that vast majority of the rivers are in those below normal stages, and many of them, probably about a quarter through many areas of the West Coast, South Coast, and Thompson-Okanagan region that are in that near record or near record level for the time of year. So this is prompting fairly elevated drought levels as we come into the season. This is a snapshot from June 11th, our current drought levels across the province. We're seeing about a little over 25% of the province area now in elevated drought levels, with proportions of level 3 and 4 popping out again in the south areas of the south interior through the Thompson region, as well as on Vancouver Island. Now, looking ahead into the summer, this is a look at the seasonal forecast for the summer. Temperature on the left, and the colors reflect how likely we are to be in above normal conditions. So really seeing a strong signal this year, 80, 90, or even more % chance. So near certainty that we're into a hotter than normal summer condition across the next few months. On the right, less of an obvious signal in terms of the precipitation, with some areas popping out with a low probability of drier conditions through the summer months. And really, if we reflect on the summer, more importantly, I think really is that the summer months are the dry months from a seasonal pattern perspective anyway. So we know there's going to be pressure just from those seasonal weather patterns. So summarizing this year, we're coming into the drought season with a number of factors that are elevating our drought hazard: that low snowpack, early snow melt, the dry spring that we've seen so far, and that projection of a hot and dry summer moving forward. We see elevated concerns in some of the areas, particularly that these factors are most prevalent in the south and south interior, central interior, and areas on the south coast and Vancouver Island. As we go forward in the coming months, the weather will continue to be critical, and that week-to-week patterns that we see in terms of rainfall and temperatures are really going to drive what we see over the coming months. So I'll finish there. And with that, I will pass it on to Neil McLaughlin with Predictive Services and the BC Wildfire Service. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Good day, and thanks for participants tuning into the latest wildfire outlook and what BC can expect for summer 2026. I'm Neil McLaughlin, Superintendent of Predictive Services. I'm joining you today from provincial headquarters for BC Wildfire Service in Kamloops. The photo I'm sharing on screen was taken on June 7th on the west flank of the Swede Creek wildfire looking east. This is a recent wildfire that started on June 1st, approximately 115 kilometers west of Quesnel, and it's currently under control at just over 1,800 hectares in size. The map I'm showing you is current drought code anomalies throughout the province. The drought code accounts for the influence of long-term drying and is an indicator of the moisture content in deep layers of the forest floor and large dead and down woody debris. Anomalous drought conditions are present in the northeast corner of the province, the central and southern interior, and southern half of Vancouver Island, and that can be depicted as the areas of deeper orange and red on the map I'm sharing. Similar patterns of drought were present in mid-June during the years 2017, 2018, and 2021. These are years many of us may remember from a wildfire perspective. The total area burned in the province was slightly above or below 1 million hectares for each of these historic years. The central and southern interior and coastal regions accounted for 70 to 90% of area burned in the province during those years. Our current drought conditions in 2026 are worse compared to this time of year in 2017, 2018, and 2021. Regional weather network specialists and members of my team have been visiting stations in the Caribou and Kamloops fire centers this spring and have verified these dry conditions. It's worth noting as well that the largest wildfires from this spring started in areas with elevated drought conditions, including the Windy Creek fire. It was located 85 kilometers west of Dawson Creek. I'm sharing a photo of that fire on screen, as well as the Swede Creek fire, again, 115 kilometers west of Quesnel on the lower left of the slide. And just to highlight something, that photo was taken with our night vision helicopter. And what you're seeing is fairly aggressive fire behavior through the overnight hours. And this is untypical of spring conditions. And it just reinforces the dry drought conditions we're seeing in that region of the province. I'll emphasize that recent rain showers and a slow start to the fire season with only 4,200 hectares burned this spring are masking the underlying fire behavior potential for this summer. Regions with persistent drought will only require 1 to 2 weeks of normal summer weather to dry surface fuels, creating elevated fire danger and conditions that are conducive to extreme fire behavior. The amount of rain that's required to mitigate drought conditions is unlikely this summer, so it is prudent that we collectively prepare for the likely possibility of a busy summer wildfire season. On this graph, I'm showing weekly fire activity as a dark black line over historical percentiles from the past 20 years. We are entering a time of year where we can expect weekly fire load to increase due to lightning, and fuels in the province are increasingly receptive to holdover lightning ignitions, especially in drought-impacted regions of the province. We can expect an elevated peak in fire activity this summer, but the exact timing is difficult to predict. So this year shares a similar pattern of spring fire activity as those 3 historic years I mentioned earlier, 2017, 2018, 2021, which I've added to the graph. The years 2017 and 2021 saw fire activity peak in mid-July, whereas the year 2018 saw fire activity peak in both late June and mid-August. Mid-August peaks in fire activity can be much more impactful, starting twice as many fires as mid-July peaks. So BC Wildfire Service will be watching for signs of strong ridge breakdowns, dry cold fronts, and other weather patterns this summer that could bring widespread lightning and rapidly increase fire activity in drought-impacted regions. In summary, long-term precipitation deficits have created above-average drought conditions in the Chilcotin, Lower Thompson, Okanagan, Vancouver Island, and northeast regions of BC. Fire activity is expected to peak through July and August, resulting in vigorous and difficult to control wildfires throughout the central and southern interior and south coast. Thank you for tuning into the Summer Outlook.
Thank you. And I'm available, and my colleagues are available to take any questions you might have about our seasonal outlook.
Thank you everyone for joining. We will take questions from the media now. Media in the room, please walk up to the microphone provided and state your name and outlet. Media on the phone, please press *1 to enter the queue.
Thank you very much, ministers. I just wanted to ask, does anyone here on the team speak French? I'm at Radio Canada. No worries. I was just wondering, perhaps for one of the Mr. McLaughlin or someone else perhaps, does it ever happen that there are these drought-like conditions and or like increased drought, and yet that there isn't an intense fire season? Like, is that possible?
I'll turn that over to either Neil or Cliff.
In years where we see conditions like this, that we may not see heightened fire activity. It's possible that we could get summer rain, but current guidance is suggesting that's less likely. And combating, even if we do get rain, we're seeing a really good signal for above normal temperatures this summer, which will exacerbate drying. But to your question, it is possible that we could get through the summer with less fire activity than what we're expecting. Again, it's prudent that we prepare for a busier fire season with the current conditions we're seeing, as well as fire behavior that we're seeing early this spring.
I understand. Thank you very much. I understand. Thank you very much.
Hi, Lauren Collins with Black Press Media. We have quite a few tourists in the region this year for the wildfire season. How is communication going to be different for people who might not know where to go?
Mm-hmm. We certainly are considering the impact of tourism, having many visitors in the region, visiting our beautiful province, all it has to offer. It is part of and integrated into our emergency response plans. And we work very closely with the tourism industry, the Ministry of Tourism, as well as local governments to ensure that any necessary messages get out to people and people are able to take the action that is necessary to keep themselves safe. We'll continue to liaise with local governments that are expecting a lot of tourism, like in Vancouver right now, as well as with the tourism industry.
We are going to the phone line next. First is John Hernandez from CBC News. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. This one for Mr. McLaughlin. Just you mentioned the conditions right now are kind of masking the sort of the dryness underneath. Can you just elaborate on that point and maybe why have we seen maybe reduced or I guess atypical conditions despite that drop?
Turn that over to Neil.
Yeah, thanks for your question. Why I mentioned that we're maybe masking our conditions is we've been very fortunate this spring. We've had more unsettled weather through the later half of May, bringing intermittent showers and in some places decent rain showers that have helped reduce our drought conditions in other parts of the province. Also cloudy weather, and that's subdued fire behavior. But underneath, that experience from the spring are these drought conditions that have been persisting, not just this year, but they persisted over previous years, and they're going to take much more rain to recover. And so in that kind of unsettled weather pattern, we're not seeing a lot of aggressive starts, and we're also outside of lightning season. While we have had a couple lightning start wildfires this spring, we're just turning the corner into lightning season. And so we're about to see a lot more fires originating from lightning sources going forward into the summer months.
John, do you have a follow-up?
And then just, yeah, you bet. Then just on that point, should, when we do see these lightning strikes happen, what does that do to this dryness that is beneath the soil there?
The dryness conditions really have no correlation to lightning, but what I want to emphasize is the dry conditions in our forest fuels are present. And so what that means when we see lightning events is that it's very easy for fires to start. We often refer to those as lightning holdovers. And it's also very easy for those fires to quickly grow in size and challenge our firefighting crews. And so what we're watching for, what a key weather pattern to watch for is a large-scale lightning event that's going to bring widespread lightning and start many fires in a short amount of time. That kind of a situation can quickly overwhelm our initial attack crews. However, forecasting lightning beyond the next 3 days is really tricky. And so in my presentation earlier, there's these different possibilities for when we could peak in the summer, and it's hard to know whether we're going to peak in the next 2 weeks or whether we'll peak later in August. And so we will continue to monitor that, and as we are looking at our weekly forecasts, be on the lookout for those weather patterns.
Next we have Brett Alvin from the Canadian Press. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. We're coming up on the 5-year mark of the fire that devastated Lytton. BC has had a number of really high risk and damaging kind of wildland interface fires over the last few years. And I'm just wondering, with this forecast that we've just received, has anything changed in terms of how the province and the fire service are approaching those kind of interface fires where communities are really pushing into these areas?
I'll pass that along to my colleague, Minister Parmar.
Thanks very much, Minister Green. No doubt we are just a couple of weeks away from the 5-year anniversary of what occurred in Lytton. And I know that over the course of the last 5 years, so many communities have been doing the critical work of fire smarting their communities. As was acknowledged in Neil's presentation, we know it's dry out there, and we all know that we all have a role to play in supporting the efforts of our wildland firefighters. And so British Columbians playing a role in fire smarting their communities is critical. But I also want British Columbians to know that we're not just waiting for fires to start. The best fire is the one that doesn't begin, but also it's important to remember that the BC Wildfire Service, outside of wildfire seasons, are also doing controlled and prescribed burns as well. And we are prioritizing those on our Crown land areas that are adjacent to wildland urban interface areas. It's very important that we do this in a controlled manner. And I want to thank all of the communities that have been participating in this program over the course of the last number of months. Year over year, we continue to see an increase. That on top of additional funding that we are providing in the Fire Smart community through Budget 2026, $15 million is going to continue to help communities do that. I would just add that it is critical as we see the work that is occurring in British Columbia and throughout Canada that we can't just focus on suppression, we have to focus on prevention. And we know that the forest sector plays a critical role in that. That's why in this past legislative session, we passed Bill 14, the Forest Statutes Amendment Act, which is going to play a critical role in ensuring that we can do more wildfire risk mitigation work in tandem with BC timber sales, commercial thinning, selective logging, partial harvesting, utilizing those types of silviculture methods to be able to not only help support our forest sector, but also to ensure that we can help fire smart our communities as well.
Brenna, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, sure. Minister, you have highlighted a few things with the expansion of night vision and obviously the fire service transitioning to year-round service over the last couple of years. But would you mind just kind of giving us a little bit more information on how kind of the makeup and the size of the BC Wildfire Service has shifted, like what has really changed over the last couple of years to improve capacity to fight those high-risk interface fires?
Yeah, you bet. I'll turn it over to my colleague, Cliff Chapman, in a moment to talk about it. But it has been a few years now since the government made the strategic decision to make the BC Wildfire Service a year-round operation. Once again, want to recognize that 2026 was another record-breaking year with British Columbians, over 2,400 of them putting their hands up, wanting to participate as wildland firefighters. Cliff and his team have done an outstanding job in every corner of this province, training folks up in boot camps. And I want them to know, those wildland firefighters to know how thankful we are for their generosity and taking time out of their busy schedules to be able to help fight fires on the front line. Technology and innovation is going to be a critical part of our success here in British Columbia and throughout Canada and how we fight fires. I know that there is a greater focus on a national wildfire service, a national prioritization of how we fight fires. I certainly welcome investments and participation from the federal government, but through the investments that we've made in aviation contracts, on new technology to help support our wildland firefighters, boots on the ground, what I touched on in my remarks with some of these aviation contracts in particular that help with night vision. I want British Columbians to know that the BC Wildfire Service is ready to go, but welcome Cliff to provide some more details on some of the steps that we've taken in preparation for the 2026 wildfire season in particular.
Thank you very much, Minister Parmar. My name is Cliff Chapman. I'm the Director of Provincial Operations for BC Wildfire Service. And Mr. Parmar has mentioned many of the additions we've made to the BC Wildfire Service. You know, I have the great fortune, I think I name it that way, of being in this service for 25 years of my life, this marking the 25th year. And seeing the changes over those 25 years is significant. The night vision technology being one piece that we've already discussed. Minister Parmar just mentioned the increase in our predictive technology using data sets that can actually allow us to see where the highest hazard is, where the highest risk is. And while I agree with Minister Parmar, the best fire is the one that doesn't start. The second best one is the one we know about instantly and can send our crews and our resources to. And I think we've seen a significant increase in our ability to predict where fires will start, the potential of those fires, and sending the right aggressive initial attack to those fires to try to stop sort of those large catastrophic fires that we've seen in the past. Now, that doesn't mean we won't have them. And when we have them is where we see the investments in some of the other pieces of infrastructure and technology, and even things like our fire camps, to make sure that we see upgrades in our fire camps so that our crews and our staff get better rest, so that they're available to go and fight the larger fires the next day and for the 14-day deployments. But I think the big piece is that we realized we couldn't do it alone. It couldn't just be the BC Wildfire Service. And so we have partnerships with municipal fire departments all over British Columbia. We work in partnerships with local governments, with First Nation governments to work together on these fires, whether it be in the initial attack phase or whether it be on our expanded attack fires. We're currently fighting a new fire that Minister mentioned this morning in and around the area of Stump Lake, and we'll be working with one of our cooperative community response crews on that fire, which is members of the public who have a higher level of training. And that's all about us working together as folks that live in BC to fight these fires and really come together as a province to do what we can to protect this beautiful province. Lots more to add, and we can certainly follow up with all the technical changes and give a write-up afterwards if you want to follow up with us.
That's all the questions we have today. Thank you everyone for joining. This concludes the Avail.
Thank you.